Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Psychology of the Close. My name is Allison Berardi, and I am the Program Coordinator of High Growth Impact Entrepreneurs. For those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit improving access and knowledge and entrepreneurship to advance economic progress for all. As you'll see in the chat in just a moment, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to help entrepreneurs fuel prosperity, no matter where they are on their journey. Be sure to check out the links and resources shared in the chat. I'm going to launch a few polls to step back and take a temperature gauge on how all of you are doing today. We use this information to guide the programs we provide for this global community of entrepreneurs. If there are specific topics or challenges you'd like us to create resources for, feel free to share them in the chat. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. First, let us know where you're dialing in from by dropping it in the chat. We'd love to see where everyone's joining us for our time together today. Second, we'll have a live Q&A at the end of the event, so feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can. While you are answering, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the incredible support of our corporate sponsors. The work we do at the center wouldn't be possible without the generosity and belief of our partners and funders, including Nasdaq, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, KPMG, Walmart, the Asia Innovation Hub, Wilson Sonsini, the Narrate Foundation, KKR, and BPM. We are deeply grateful for their partnership, and we hope you'll join us in sharing that appreciation. So just a few more minutes here with the polls. Let's see where you all are calling in from. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Chris Michael, behavioral strategist, corporate mentalist, executive director of the Global Institute of Behavior, and founder of Decode Behavior.
Every day, the people in this room are building something that doesn't exist yet. Ideas turning into products, and products turning into companies, and companies shaping industries that haven't even fully formed. That kind of work isn't easy. It's uncertain, it's demanding, and most of the time it comes down to one moment: the decision. The moment a customer says yes, the moment an investor leans in, or the moment a partnership moves forward or disappears. There's no matter how good the idea is, nothing will grow until someone chooses it. That's what this session is all about. Not just sales, but understanding the psychology behind why people say yes in the first place, and how decisions actually get made inside the brain. We'll also talk about how small shifts in communication can completely change business outcomes. The truth is, closing isn't about pressure or sales scripts. It's about understanding perception, behavior, and how to control and influence. When you understand this at a deeper level, you're going to stop hoping that things convert and start knowing how to move people to work with you. To guide us through that lesson, the Nasdaq has decided to bring someone in who operates at the intersection of human behavior and high-stakes decision-making. He's a behavioral strategist, an intelligence trainer whose work has influenced over 760 million in business outcomes across the globe and helped raise more than $19 million for charities in the last 4 years.
Holy cow, we did it, baby!
His background includes work with private intelligence groups and training alongside professionals operating at the highest levels of behavioral analysis. His insights have been trusted from leaders of Fortune 500 companies to staff inside of the White House. What you're going to experience isn't just him teaching, he's going to demonstrate it live for all of us. So please, welcome your teacher for Psychology of the Close, the one and only Chris Michael.
I know you guys can't really applaud, but you could put the number one in the chat. That's an applause for me. Put some ones in the chat. Yeah, thank you. We're here and we made it, and I hope you guys are feeling good. Hopefully that that intro hyped you up a little bit. Just a quick way for me to get my bearings, because I want to know how deep on some of the material to go, because I have so much material that we can go into like 4 days of topics, and I'm not going to do that to you. But I wanted to know how many of you are fairly familiar with psychology, specifically the idea of like the limbic system versus the new brain or the neocortex. Just say me if that's you, and I'm going to just see if it's like more than a third, then I can skip a couple of things and go over them with less detail. Yeah, okay, cool. I have to just wonder how many people are just saying me and they don't know. All right. Well, my slides, I'm going to pull them up here and I'll be in the little bottom corner for you guys. I wanted to start by giving you just a quick peek at what most of the conferences that I speak at sound like. It's this.
I found the AI really useful.
That's from a recent Google event, and in just a short 1 hour session, I think it's actually an hour and a half, they said AI 151 times, 121 during this clip, but 151 during the entire session. And I'm going to try to focus on something that's different and a little bit more grounded, which is on human behavior. The stuff that's completely separate from the technology or the sales funnels that you build into your website, and talk back to the roots of why we do what we do and what drives people to make decisions and control outcomes. Before I go any further, this is important, and I do have a purpose for doing this, but I'm genuinely looking for whoever wants $100. You will get it. I will Venmo or PayPal you $100, but I need one person. Let's see who we have that puts it in. Okay, Kayla, you're the first one. So Kayla, Keylam, Kayla, my question for you is this. Would you rather have $100 right now? You can have $100 now that I will Venmo or PayPal you, guaranteed. Or if you wait 30 days, I'll give you $120. I'll PayPal and Venmo you. Do you prefer, you can tell everybody, the $100 now, or do you want the $120 in a month? Okay. Well then, Kayla, what I'll do is I'm going to send you a private message. If you're comfortable with it, you can send me your PayPal or your Venmo. You will get it before the end of the session, guaranteed. You'll have $100. I'm not going to explain why I'm doing this yet, but we will get into it. But congratulations, Kayla. You just got $100 for doing basically nothing. It's beautiful. That's a good way to win a crowd over, I think. Some quick background, and I won't spend a lot of time because I had my intro video. Coming up, I'll be an adjunct professor at the Catholic University here in Washington, D.C., teaching human behavior and covert persuasion. I own a company called Decode Behavior, which focuses on training private intelligence, and also we have a subsect that focuses on sales teams, and we work with some amazing companies on this. I started the Global Institute of Behavioral Intelligence, or the Global Institute of Behavior for short. And we want to standardize what people think about body language, human behavior, because there's so much BS out there and so much pop psychology that's just not true, that body language is getting such a bad rap. And it's become almost a myth. It's like believing in astrology. And my goal is to sort of shatter that. Here on the screen is just a list of certifications that you can get through the Institute of Behavior. I've gotten to work for some really awesome companies. I've worked with companies that have now, based on our trainings, done over 800 million in business impact through our company Decode Behavior. That's companies like PepsiCo, Performance Food Group, Calgon Carbon, and now the Nasdaq Center, the Entrepreneur Center here. These are some of the other companies that I've worked for. I've even worked with the British royal family. I've done some stuff inside of the White House. And my point of telling you all this is so that when I teach you this material, you know not to cross your arms and be skeptical, but know that this is stuff that's being used at the highest level. Oh yeah, this is fun. I've worked in a lot of different conferences, from the National Ice Cream Retailers Association, which was amazing, and had the displeasure of working at some like the Society of Government Urologists, which was just about as fun as as it sounds like. My last bit of housekeeping is this. Now that you know about who I am, we're about to go into what we're going to cover, but I ask you, if something resonates with you, if something feels like, oh, I needed to hear that, or yes, I want to remember this, show it to me by putting #nugget in the chat. When I perform in real life, I have these plastic nuggets I'll throw to the audience, but I want you guys to tell me so I can look back at the transcript and see what resonates with people. What kind of material should I put more emphasis on when I do these in the future? And then also lets people know that are paying attention, oh, there's a nugget here. I was looking at my phone, I wasn't watching the screen. Maybe I should look at the slide and take some notes. So it helps you, it helps your fellow attendees, and it also helps me. So just as a way to break the resistance on typing it, and so that you don't feel silly in the future, I'm not patronizing you, I just genuinely want you to do this. Put in #nugget in the chat right now. I just want every single person to do that, if you can, please. That way I know you know how to open the chat, you know how to type in there. Deanna with the all caps, okay. Appreciate the energy, girl. All right, we're going to start here. This is the Roman Empire. It's like those TikToks where they ask their husband, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? For me, it's a lot. They had all this land that you can see that is the red on the screen, but the center of their power was Roma, or Rome, the Eye of Rome. It's a little easier to see on this photo here. Okay, when a Hungarian creator named Orban came to the Byzantine Empire here in Constantinople and asked them, hey, we have a cannon that will launch a 1-ton cannonball nearly a mile. It's so powerful and heavy it has to be pulled by 200 men and 20 oxen. Would you like to buy this cannon? The Romans go, you know what? We're the Romans. We've got everything taken care of. We're good. Thanks. Well, the Ottoman Empire hears word about Orban, which is the gentleman's name who created it, and this cannon. And they said, you know what, Orban? Sounds like a great product. We'll buy this cannon. They take that cannon, they put it at the walls of Constantinople for 53 days, 53 nights. The Roman Empire falls, and we enter the Dark Ages. Oh, sorry, not those Dark Ages. The medieval ages, those Dark Ages. Not those ones, not the 2008 Dark Ages. And I'm telling you this because I want you to realize the Romans, who had all the money to invest in this idea, they could have purchased it, and in fact, not purchasing it was their downfall. Was it a bad product? No. But they still rejected it because they couldn't imagine a world that existed where whatever was going to happen to them would happen if they didn't invest in this idea. Same thing happened to Edison. He goes to England, 1873, shows them the light bulb, and the Science Foundations there said, your ideas are unfit or unworthy of the attention of practical men. Maybe if he took the idea to the women, they would have seen the light. 1981, where Christopher quits the Asparagus Cultural Society. He doesn't want to perform at Renaissance festivals anymore. They were doing really well, but they said, hey, we just need to perform at these a little bit longer, and then we'll branch out. And he quit, and that duo that remained ended up going on to be Penn and Teller. I'm going to skip through this one, but I'm showing you this to tell you your ideas are not bad ideas. In fact, most of what's standing in your way in sales is not a product problem, it's a psychological problem. Look at the freaking Scrub Daddy. It's $1 billion product, and it's a sponge with holes cut out of it. And whatever you're doing or selling or whatever service you provide has to be better than that. And so you're sitting on a potential $1 billion if you understand how to convince people that your ideas are valuable. And so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to talk about hijacking the brain's functions that will cause resistance so that we can prevent that resistance from happening, reduce cognitive inertia in the people that we're speaking to, and increase suggestibility so that they can help us help them. Some of the stuff that I'm going to share is going to seem manipulative, or it's going to seem very potent and powerful, and it works, which is good. But I want you to remember that when you have a product or service that you believe in, you know that the people who subscribe to that or purchase that, their life is better for it. And so if you really do believe that you're selling something that's going to change people's lives, then you're just helping people get out of their own way. If you're good at marketing and you know that you're targeting people who will benefit from this, you just need to reduce that initial resistance so that they can use your ideas. And that sounds like a hard thing to do. Like, how am I going to basically control someone's mind. Well, there is some good news. The good news is that we're basically all using the same brain from millions of years ago. And so there's so much research and science that we know about how the brain works and how to drive specific triggers that drive action. So let me see if I can have you guys guess this. The number one most sold product by volume, by amount sold, like specific code, scanned and purchased, is what product in a supermarket? Oh, Susan, thank you for the nugget. I wish I saw when it came in because I have no idea. I hope it wasn't just about the supermarket. Okay, bread and water. I'm seeing those. Not quite. Toilet paper is a good guess, but no. Soda. Oh, that guy's American. Oh, that woman. Sorry, Susan. I'll give you the answer. And it's shocking, but when you think about evolution, maybe not so much. By volume, the most purchased product in a grocery store here in America is bananas. Kind of goes to show you we're not so different from our ancestors after all. I don't think that's actually the reason why, but it is a cool way to illustrate that basically we're the same, on the same hardware and software, the same brain, the same circuitry that we've been using for millions of years. And actually, you guys are right there, because they go bad quickly. Yeah, and also smoothie culture and health culture. It's an easy snack. It's used for baking, for banana bread. They're just so widely consumed, and they don't hold for very long. And because we have this system that we know how to control, called the limbic system, which I know you guys said you're familiar, so I'm going to speed this part through because I have a lot I want to get through. But the brain is basically broken down into 3 layers. So the brainstem, I don't focus on that in my career. That's, when I got my degree, I had to take tests on it, but it just does functions that keep you alive. And I'm not in clinical psychology, I'm in behavioral psychology, so that's not of interest to me. Then we have the neocortex, which is when you picture the brain, that's what you're seeing, that pink mass with the wrinkles being sulci, the bulges being gyri. That's the neocortex. And the limbic system is a part inside of the brain. I think I have an image of it, yeah. It's a very simplified image. In fact, there's far more parts in it than this. But those colored regions that you're seeing over here is the limbic system. It's inside of the brain, and it's the mammalian brain. It's the same part of the brain that's developed in most mammals. So your dogs, your cats. When you think about what drives a dog's behavior and comfort, you're dealing with the limbic system. And humans like to believe that we're so different from other mammals, but we're not. The difference is that we can take our limbic responses, what our limbic and mammalian brain, does, and we can interpret it and analyze it. We can look at it through the lens of why did I feel that way? Or how do I not feel that way in the future? For us, that's really useful because we know 2 things. The limbic system is incredibly easy to control, and the neocortex works to our disadvantage because most decisions that anyone's going to make is an emotional decision. The limbic system is what's in charge of everything that we do, but the neocortex is in charge of everything that we think. This is why you have that sense of intuition where you just know something but you can't prove it. Or some dude has bad vibes and you can't quite articulate why, but and then you get evidence later that proves that. That's because your limbic system is so well evolved for keeping us safe and making the right decisions, and the brain has something known as metabolic efficiency. It does not want to burn more energy in the form of glycogen than it needs to. Sorry to go into a boring science rant, but it doesn't need us to know why it's making these decisions to keep us safe. All it needs to know is that we are safe. So I like to make this example of the limbic system. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I figured I'll turn the music off because I wanted you to get this to be clear. So I got you, Framisha. The limbic system is like the big brother. And if you are an older sibling, then you know that sometimes you let your little sibling feel in charge. You give them some autonomy, you give them some responsibility. But if crap hits the fan, you're taking back over. You're taking charge. The limbic system is very similar to that, where it gives us the illusion that we're in charge. But when stress and pressure or stakes are involved, it's going to take charge again, be that big brother, and maybe let the little brother feel like he did a good job in solving the problem. Same way that our brain works. So let me go back just to show you how we can short circuit the brain. This is really fun. Do not try to think so creatively. Your goal is to think of the same thing that everyone else thinks of. So don't hit enter, but I need you, please, to type into the chat the name of a vegetable. Quickly type it. Don't hit enter, just type it. Don't change it. Don't change it. Tomato's a fruit, by the way, for whoever sent that. Now, not a broccoli. If you're thinking of a broccoli, I need you to go ahead and change it. And good, now you can send them. So, broccoli is so ubiquitous in our culture. If you really want to know the science of why this works, in mentalism we call these psychological forces. It's a product of our brain being like highways. The more specific thought is fired, the more myelination, the more fatty materials we get around our axons, and that allows the information to send more easily. Remember I said metabolic efficiency. The brain wants to be efficient. If something's not important, if it doesn't really matter, it's going to take whatever shortcuts are available for it to use the least energy available. Broccoli is so ubiquitous because when we're growing up and learning our vegetables, or vegetables are in cartoons, you're going to see a broccoli on the plate. But when I say don't think of a broccoli, most people, and just type me in the chat, if carrot popped in your mind at any point. Just type me in the chat if carrot was one of those things that popped into your mind. And look at how many different people in this chat are saying me. I bet you rutabaga didn't pop in someone's mind, or onions didn't pop into people's minds as much, maybe a few of you. But look at this. I have orange on the screen. I made the don't change it text orange. And if I would have said quick like a rabbit, think of a vegetable, I probably could have even increased the amount in which people say it. Because there's no stakes or pressure in this decision, I know that 72%, the studies show, will think of either carrot or broccoli. It's just a mental shortcut. And it works on everybody in our culture, at least 72% of us, because our brains all work the same. Before I show you some of the ways that we're going to use this in sales, because I'm going to go over some body language techniques that I think a lot of people need to learn that they don't learn, that's really going to help you. I'll tell you more about why that's important in a second, but I want to show you a little bit more about how the brain is more powerful than we give it credit for. And here's something that actually is happening in your limbic system, and a little bit in your auditory system as well, that I don't think you know is possible. I'm going to play two sounds. They're both going to be water being poured into a cup. One of them is cold water, and one of them is hot water. And it's up to you. Don't put it in the chat until I tell you. Just listen to both, and then I'm going to ask you which one you think is cold. I'll actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just ask you what the first one is, because that way there's less confusion. So let me play the first sound now.
Between pores, ready, begin.
And I'm so sorry if you have to pee. I'm terribly sorry. Were y'all able to hear that okay? Okay, you guys can hear that. Okay, now I'm going to play the second one, and I want you to listen for this one, all right?
Between pores, ready,
sorry, hold on, let me skip.
begin.
Oh, it won't let me go to the next one. Hold on. Let's try. I think this is the second one. All right, so that was the second one. Does anybody need me to play it again? So my question for you then is, which one was the first pour, cold or hot? I'm seeing mostly cold, so you guys are all over this. Cold is the right answer for the first one. And the reason why this works is it's important for us to be able to determine the temperature of things, especially when we're going to put it in our body. So we have a system that our brain can utilize. And obviously, when I'm drawing your attention to it and making you think about it, you may even think it's a trick. And so you have some skepticism that makes you fight back. But it looked like most people got that correct. The first pour is cold, and we can hear it because the viscosity of the water is different. When the molecules are cold, they're a little bit more densely packed, and so it's less, it's more viscous, and we can hear that. Also, you can actually hear the steam changing the acoustics on the side of the glass. So now that you've heard them, let me play them again. You'll know the first one's cold, the second one is the second one is hot, and you'll be able to very quickly determine, and you'll go, oh yeah, now that I think about it, that's definitely the case. Listen. So let's do the first one now.
Between pores. Ready?
This is the
begin.
cold one. And here's the second. That one's hot. So this just goes to demonstrate that the brain has a lot more capabilities than we think about, and we're much better at intuiting things even without knowing that we can intuit them. And when you learn to read body language, it's going to be the same thing. A lot of you probably already know how to detect these things or how to pick up on it, but when you learn how to be intentional about something, you have the language to explain it, and you can actually pinpoint what it is that's making you feel that way. You have more control over it. I wanted to cover it later in the presentation, but because it's such a large topic, I'm going to just give you some resources so that you can take this and use it on your own when you're at home or when you're in a meeting. There's this system that will make sure that the tools that I give you in reading body language in a meeting, which will help you determine, is this person resonating with what I'm saying? Are they likely to close? Do they like my pitch? Do they like me as a person? Did I say something uncomfortable? What term in the contract made them have resistance? And why did they not move forward with me if they didn't move forward? And this is super helpful because if you think back to when you were dating, you might go on a date with somebody, you may go to the coffee shop and have a great conversation and be laughing, feel that chemistry and go, oh my gosh, that went amazing. And then you only know that it didn't go well or that they didn't feel that way when you don't get a call back. They ghost you and it's already too late. Business is very similar. You can negotiate your terms. They can say, oh, this sounds great. Hey, we're excited. We're going to circle back. And then they never sign the contract. They never pay the deposit. And now you're stuck wondering where you went wrong. What I'm going to be teaching you and showing you is the toolkit to know how to address those in the moment. Because just like how maybe if you talked about your views on religion, but maybe you're more open-minded than you made it sound on that date, I'm using the date example, then maybe you could have said, hey, I can see this was making you uncomfortable. I just want to tell you that, like, I'm not dogmatic about this. I think anybody can believe whatever they want to believe, and it doesn't make a difference for my partner what they believe. You may have saved it, right? Probably a terrible example, but same thing in business. If you can spot where in the contract they're uncomfortable when you're negotiating those terms, you can say, hey, if there's a little give and take that we can do, maybe around this clause here is what I'm feeling I would want to adjust. Now you're telling them that you're aligned with their thinking on what they want to adjust. And the way to make sure that this is not BS and is actually helpful is using the 5 C's. When I work for, let's say you're doing forensic psychology or interrogation, it will be thrown out so quickly if you have not considered context. So this is, what situation are they in? And how is this occurring? Thank you, Susan, for the nugget on that. Oh, yeah, how does this differ when you're in a Zoom call? I have that question. I'll be doing a Q&A at the end, so hold that question. That's a great question. I can explain it to you. Because you could even do it over the phone. You could do it over the phone even when you can't see them, and I'll be able to explain that in the Q&A. So this is just that context is very dependent on the situation. If you're reading a lot of uncomfortable cues from the person, but maybe also they're, for the case of in an interrogation room, anyone's going to be uncomfortable initially when they're brought in for questioning. If the person is in a rush and you're trying to talk to them and you're seeing discomfort cues, well, the context matters. Next is clusters. No single behavior means anything on its own. There's no such thing as a Pinocchio effect. If you watch a video and you say, oh, they touch their nose, that means they're lying, or they're crossing their arms, they're guarded, it's BS. That's not true, because you need a cluster of different behaviors that all indicate the same thing before you can be fairly certain that what you're picking up from them, what the emotion, the cognitive load, the resistance, the openness, whatever it is that you're detecting, there needs to be a cluster that supports it before you can be certain in it. And even when I say certain, I mean that it's very likely, because there's no such thing as certain in body language. Congruence. This is really a big one, and people forget this. So does their body language match the words that they're saying? I love to watch videos of Pam Bondi, especially before she was trained in her body language. And politicians are getting trained constantly. Two of my friends work for politicians, and they do adjustments on their speeches. They review them with them and say, hey, here's how people are perceiving it. This is what you can change to make it look different. And it's very small things. In the case of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, she did a lot of this when they talked about the Epstein files. She's like, we don't have the files, they don't exist, and she's nodding her head. That's a lack of congruence. She's saying they don't have something, but yet she's confirming, she's giving the affirmative with her head. In behavioral science, we know that that is a very strong sign that there is something incongruent in either her belief about that, her knowledge in it, or that it could be some context variable. I think that context is a little hard to apply to incongruence because incongruence is one of our best indicators. But now when you watch her, she does this. Someone must have talked to her because she does no, yes. When she talks, she's always doing this so that you never know which one it is. Because I think she moves her head a lot when she talks, which is probably from her upbringing. But now she's doing this all the time. I don't know if you guys can see my head. Let me bring my my screen a little bit bigger. So she's saying, we will take care of it. We're going to make sure that everyone is safe and cared for. Clear as day, that was a suggestion so that people don't read into the incongruence. Consistency. Compare what you're seeing to that individual's personal baseline. So you have to make sure that you understand what the person's habits and behaviors are. For me, I wiggle my legs all the time. I have restless leg syndrome, so my legs are always moving. If you just look at the tool I'm going to show you and it says that, you know, like leg fidgeting means that someone has nervous energy, and then you just think that I'm nervous because I'm moving my legs, you'd be wrong. It's the consistency of their behavior. For me, it's actually a red flag when my legs stop moving. That's an indication that something's happening and something's changed. And then culture. These are very important because, for instance, you know, if you're in Southeast Asia and you see this, you may think that it means no or it's in the negative, but that's not the case. That's just a cultural signal for yes or the affirmative. And there's tons of cultural signals. So just know who you're going into a meeting with. Oh, you can't see the slide. I'm sorry. Thank you for telling me. Culture is here. Hopefully you guys know how to screenshot too. I'm hoping you can screenshot this out. I spent a little longer on this than I wanted to, but one more thing on congruence. It's not just about yes or no, affirmative. It's if the person's, you know, sitting like this and saying, yeah, I'm comfortable. Or even if they're doing this, they're saying, yeah, I'm warm. That would raise red flags, right? Because it's not congruent. It doesn't make sense. Their body language doesn't match the words that they're saying. And what we need to know is that words are coming from the neocortex, the thinking brain. They're processed and filtered, but body language very rarely is. Think about dogs when they tuck their tail. They're tucking their tail usually subconsciously. They don't even really know that they're doing it. It's not a conscious decision to do it. With humans, digital flexion, the retraction of the fingers when we feel less confident, so well cited. There has been no evidence against it that when we are uncomfortable, we retract our fingers, digital retraction, or some people call it digital flexion. It always happens out of our control. It's never happened consciously. I've never thought, oh, I'm uncomfortable, let me bring my fingers back. Let me actually ask this real quick. How many of you think that you could tell me, oh, sorry, I'm reading these chats. I think this is just a software for recording meetings for Otter. Okay, no problem. How many of you think that you know the function of why would a dog retract its tail when it's nervous or afraid? Where does that come from? Does anybody know? I know there's a delay, so I'll move on and then I'll read them in a second. Okay, so this is the tool that I'm going to give you for reading body language, but you have to make sure you view it through the lens of 5 C's. I worked really hard on this. It's a culmination of a tool called the Behavioral Table of Elements. And the Behavioral Table of Elements is a tool made by Chase Hughes, who was a naval intelligence officer who wanted to give it to people who were doing interrogations, mostly around discovering deception of the subject. You can use this for deception to know if someone's lying or telling the truth, or at least have some level of certainty. But this really expands much further than that. I have a screen share for this tool, and this QR code, before I show it to you, if you scan it, it will give you access to it. So this will show you not only just a sales tool, which is what was pictured on the screen just a moment ago. Let me go back so you can see, where you can see buying signals, signals that when you see, maybe you should check for their engagement. hidden objections. So what shows me that they're objecting but maybe not saying something out loud? Because remember, the neocortex, the speaking brain, the thinking brain has filters. People don't want to tell you they're not interested because they don't want to be stuck in a conversation where you're trying to convince them. People don't want to have a conversation about something that they don't want to do. And so if you can spot it and you can communicate that before they say anything, you have a chance to win them back over. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but let me put that QR code back up. So you can see closing readiness, symbols of power dynamics, what we call territorial displays, which are really important. In fact, airlines are really trained on territorial displays or power dynamics, so much so that I know from American Airlines, from working on a project with them, that if someone displays big territorial displays, meaning they're like asking for a refund or wanting to switch seats, but they're leaning on the table and taking that space, those people are less likely to be able to be convinced, change their behaviors. They're going to be authoritative and more dominant. And so they know not to put those people on the same flight if they're causing troubles, if the flight's already packed, because it's just going to be an issue. It's going to make it a nightmare for everybody. So they actually know how to spot territorial displays, and they'll change how they respond to you and the type of service that they give you based on your body language. All right, so yeah, just scan this because I don't want to go over all the behaviors. I'm just going to let you guys take some screenshots of the next few slides I'm going to show you, and you can use this tool to learn them on your own. Just a couple of things that I like to talk about that you really should spot that people don't talk about is lip compression. Once everyone scan this QR code, I'll give you about 5 more seconds. Okay. A suprasternal notch touch is the same reason why a dog would tuck their tail when they're worried. So the limbic system for dogs, somebody just said protection when fearful. If a dog was being attacked by a predator, they don't want to get their tail severed. It's sticking out, it's waving, it's behind them, it's behind their head, they can't see it, and it's a very vulnerable point to be grabbed, pulled, or even get ripped off. So subconsciously, their tail tucks for protection. It's less likely to get caught on something. It also makes them look less threatening to a potential predator because they are not seeming as big, and so they seem non-threatening. Similarly, this is more common in women. Men will do a hand clasp on the neck when they're very uncomfortable, but it's a lot higher of a threshold for discomfort for a man to do this than a woman. Women have a suprasternal notch. It's a divot right here. Most women will have this. And I hate to gender this, but because I'm talking about biology stuff, this doesn't always apply. You know, sexual orientation or sexual expression, these can vary, okay? But if you're more feminine displaying, you're going to see more of this touch here when people's uncomfortable. You'll see them playing with their necklace or covering this because this is a common place that a predator would grab and be able to puncture that airway and prevent you from being able to get away. It's easy to grab, it's highly visible, and it's highly vulnerable. So you protect that by playing with your neck. If you see this in a meeting, somebody disagrees with something you said, they don't feel as convinced of what you're saying, or they're uncomfortable. So this is a great sign, or playing with the jewelry. Now also, context matters. Maybe they're always a little nervous in meetings. Maybe they don't like to have live conversations with people. So again, baselining is important, and that's the situation in where, do I have a baselining here? Baselining is essentially getting a sense of the person's norm. When you're making small talk, when you're not talking about anything that they're stakes, when you're not pushing them. That's why it's really important to have those small talks, have personal conversations before any actual real meat of the conversation is discussed so that you can baseline the person and know their behavior so that when something changes, you know how to pivot. Hey, thank you for the nuggets. Okay. So just take some screenshots of this. This is in the tool that I've given you with that QR code. And if you email me as well, which we'll put my my email in the chat actually for everybody right now that's here. That way when we post the replay on YouTube, I'm not getting it from everybody. I'll write it here. And if you email me with the subject codex, I can also just email you that codex, which is the behavioral codex is the tool that I shared with all of you. Okay. All right, take some screenshots of these. I'm going to move through them pretty quickly. If you miss it, don't worry. I can also email you the slides upon request. These are just a couple of things like engagement retreat, meaning that they're starting to lose engagement. What you need to know about each of these behaviors is they're based on that sign, that protection. They're based on physiological responses for threat, and the threat can be real or perceived. Remember, bank accounts are like our health bars. If they feel that they're going to make a decision that's going to impact their livelihood or their perception with their peers or get them in trouble with their boss, there are stakes, and physiological things will happen no matter how subtle. That's why the stereotype of somebody touching their nose when they're lying comes, because if someone's stressed, your mucous membranes, your body stops allocating resources to moisture in the skin and starts moving those to get blood and readiness into the larger muscles for retreat, defense, or flight. So that freeze, fight, or flight. That means that there's going to be a drying of the mucous membranes in your nose. In fact, one of the best things I ever learned when I was going through training with one of the ex-founders of the, not ex, I mean, he was one of the founders of the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit. He shared with me this awesome tool that, depending on the lighting, like the lighting that I have would be perfect, you can actually tell when someone's nervous based on when you observe a loss of sheen or shine on their nose, because that is the mucous membranes drying up. So if you take your finger, don't go in your nose, but go beside your nose and feel it, you will feel how moist that is. If you can ever remember the next time you're nervous or anxious about something, feel that. It will be much more dry to the touch. Fascinating. I don't think you guys are going to be looking at that at this high level, having just learned this stuff, but it's fascinating what you can observe. So engagement retreat, micro commitment hesitations, this just means that they're less likely to commit to whatever you're offering. And then certainty drop. This is just that they were certain, they were on your side, and then they're dropping. All of this is shared in that behavioral table of elements from Chase Hughes, but also in my behavioral codex, which has 200 more different behaviors and also has a sales tool for you guys. Oh man, I want to go into some perception and covert persuasion. So this is the tool that I would say to use in your meetings, is to just, I'm going to go through it super quick. You want to detect their baseline. I always know this as Decode, because my company's Decode Behavior. So detect baseline, identify their behaviors, engage with them as a peer. I can't miss this because it's so important. When you use corporate speak and you try to be so professional, do you know that that's going to hurt your sales more than almost anything else that you can do, especially when you're D2C, direct to consumer? B2B is slightly different because there's a bit of posturing involved, a bit of trying to make sure that you're perceived as quality. But when you're dealing high level to high level, owner to owner, or CTO to CTO, you want to try to limit that corporate speak if that's the way that they naturally talk, because that shows warmth, and warmth is going to drive emotion more than any corporate language will. It's so important. Like, there's a company that I make almost 6 figures every year from just on that one contract with that company, and they use me every month for something. And it's crazy because even though I'm making, over $100,000 from one company throughout the year, the way that we text each other is so casual. And I actually, as a business owner myself, I've hired a lot of people. I've partnered with some of the biggest companies you can partner with. I always get a little bit of an ick if I'm operating at a really high level and someone's using a very corporate and professional talk with me. I'm almost always going to prefer that my liaison or my point of contact is somebody different, or I'm going to assume that they're a low-level employee. I hate to tell it to you. That is the truth. I mean, this is kind of a gross example, but if you look at I'm hesitant to bring it up, but it is what it is. If you look at the Epstein files and you see all these rich billionaires communicating, there's money being exchanged in amounts that we couldn't even fathom. And those emails are just no punctuation, very casual. That's how, I'm not saying I talk like Epstein. Let's not get that confused, okay? I don't want to have any people thinking that's what I'm going with here. But I do want to point out that at a very high level, that's what I'm used to seeing. And so that's how I know that I can trust that person, because it means they're not hiding or hedging. A lot of corporate speak has hedging statements, things like, well, we're kind of a company, and our goal is sort of and you're saying things like sort of, kind of. You're using terms like circle back. We all know what that means, right? Just say what you mean. You're using language as a protection, which means that you're not as vulnerable with me, which means that I'm not going to get to where I want to get as quickly with you. Time and place. My lawyer has never not talked in corporate speak for a day in his life. That's just who he is. I think legal, very important to have that posture, that sense of authority, that professionalism. So time and place. I'm not prescribing that for every situation, but very important. So yeah, engage, match their tone and their content, their vibe, their energy. If they're excited, get excited, because people want to talk to a reflection of them. It's mirroring. isopraxis is the name of that principle. You're going to confirm your pace and tone, which is what I just talked about with isopraxis, and style to theirs. If they're excited, be excited. If they're not excited, don't be overly excited with them. Try to match them where they're at. Observe, so look for those behaviors, what changes, and then try to diagnose, why did that change occur? How come when I brought up our refund policy, did they retract, get smaller, cover their suprasternal notch? Why do they compress their lips when I say that? And you want to look for those clusters of behaviors and find out, what was it? And the best way to diagnose it is to ask. To say, every time I pitch that part to somebody, I always feel like there's a slight bit of tension there. And to be honest, I'm flexible on that. I'm just going through it the way that I know how to go through it. What are your honest, you won't hurt my feelings, honest opinions about that part that we just discussed? Let them diagnose it for you. You're giving them a pass to be honest. And then elevate. So this is take all the things that you know about them, what they're excited about, what they're not excited about, and push that future vision to them. Take the parts that they were the most excited about and parrot those back at the end. Focus your energy and materials on that outcome, not the stuff they were uncomfortable about. I'm running short on time. Let me very, very quickly try to go through these. This is the real meat of what I wanted to talk about, which is covert persuasion. Again, do not use this for nefarious purposes, because the human brain is the human brain. It works the same in most situations. You just want to do this not to sell and be greedy for your own benefit, but to help them get out of their own way. There's a guy named Luigi Galvani he lived in Italy, and during the time of the Enlightenment period, people were starting to find out that it wasn't just spiritual energy and biles in our body that made us do things. There was real science taking place. And Galvani one day was taking some frog legs and hanging them on metal hooks and saw that these severed frog legs would kick, and it scared him. Maybe it was a static shock, was what he originally thought, but he didn't really know why that would happen, because if he static shocked a metal coin, it wouldn't jump. So why would this frog leg jump? Well, what he determined is that animals have something called animal electricity. So I'll get the slide so I can just connect with you guys a little bit. That discovery of animal electricity, that all animals have an innate electrical charge inside of them, was so massive, the guy basically became a rock star in Italy at the time. He even ended up working with a guy named Volta, and Volta is where we get the term volt for batteries. They collaborated on this idea for the first ever battery, which is basically a stack of metal washers with some fabric in between containing the liquid that drove animal electricity. That liquid, that massive discovery, electrolytes, basically salt water. Our body has enough salt water in it to conduct electricity and move pathways through our nerves like an electrical signal. So why this matters is that the brain is basically a system of chemicals, which we know how to trigger because those are emotions, and we can make people feel emotions. We can also drive electrical signals in the mind as well. Words are electrical events. Emotions is chemistry, and influence is neuroscience. If we know how to drive emotion, and we also know how to drive electrical signals by giving a starter neuron the chance to fire by triggering it. Think about the carrot example I did at the beginning. That's an electrical signal. It has nothing to do with emotion, and I can still sort of control where the output's going to go. If we know both of these things, then we can influence people to do almost anything, and there's proof of that based on... you guys don't need to know the difference between white matter and gray matter. It's very important in behavioral science and neurobiology, but we don't need to know it here. What I do want to talk about is there's an experiment called the Milgram experiment. Thank you. All right, I'm at the 50-minute mark, so this will be the last thing that I tell you, and then you guys will get my slides. It will have all my materials and information and the steps on psychological operations controls, covert persuasion, and influence. But if I could get one thing that I really want you to take away from it, it's this. This actually leads into my key takeaway, which is great. Stanley Milgram was this really tall scientist at Stanford, and in the 70s, they did a experiment where they took students and they put them in a room, and they thought there were two students being evaluated at the same time. Okay, let me take myself off the screen here. So there's a learner and a teacher. The scientist that you're seeing is Stanley Milgram. That was him. The learner is actually in on the experiment. He's part of this, but the teacher doesn't know that. The teacher is just a random student. So hopefully you're following me so far. The scientist is Stanley Milgram. The learner is supposed to be a student who's also being tested, but it's not. It's an actor. And the teacher is the student who's actually being evaluated. The teacher was set to administer a set of questions to the learner. And the learner had to pick the right answer by pressing one of the buttons. And if the answer was incorrect, they would administer a shock. And the person administering that shock was the teacher. They had to shock the person every time they got it wrong. Now, when they conducted this experiment, the original thought was that 0.04% of people were going to go to the point in which the shock could be lethal. They were trying to test psychopathy in the population. Well, each time a question was wrong, they would have to turn up the dial, change the shock to be a higher amount of voltage, and shock the participant again. Any guesses how many people went to the amount that could be lethal? Well, the answer was all of them. 100% of the people went to the amount that could be lethal. That amount of shock, every single participant went through. And you're wondering, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't administer harm. Well, here's the scary part. Even after the teacher, after the third shock, started saying, ow, it hurts. I have a heart problem. Please stop. This could kill me. They still administered the shocks. If they looked back at Stanley Milgram for permission, all he would say is it's imperative that you continue the experiment. And 65% of the participants went to the max voltage labeled XXX highly dangerous and still shocked them to the maximum amount, well beyond what could be lethal. 100% went to what could be lethal. 65% went to an amount that we're almost certain it would be. Basically, all I'm saying is that if we can convince somebody to commit murder, which so many versions of this experiment have been done around the globe since and always have very similar findings, then we can convince somebody to buy something. It's much easier to convince somebody to sell something or to buy something than it is to convince them to commit basically murder. And all that comes down to, this will all be in your slides, but it comes down to two things, which is novelty and authority. Novelty and authority are the things that you can use to make anybody do something against what would typically be their default response. Novelty means that you're putting them in a situation that they haven't been in before, they haven't recognized, or it's different than what they're used to. And authority triggers compliance. It bypasses evaluation and says, okay, I guess I have to do this. Those two things make you get away with anything that you want to convince somebody of anything. So in the slides, you'll get some versions of novelty. You'll get the 5 pillars that create authority, and it's not what you think. Authority isn't just being brooding. It's actually all of these things here. Gratitude and enjoyment being really big ones. If you enjoy someone's company, they have more authority over you. Think about your best friends. They probably have a lot of authority in your life because you enjoy them. There's like a little self-assessment you can do for authority that comes from Chase Hughes. And the only other thing that I really want to show you, if I can, is this, because while I teach sales primarily when I'm working with companies, I think marketing is important, and I think marketing and sales can be one and the same if done really well. This is the cycle of how to change someone's beliefs. We actually use this in a propaganda toolkit when we are working in, intelligence agencies. I'm not saying that we use it all the time, but this is basically the steps for propaganda. If you do this for creating a client engagement or customer activation or putting your products out there on social media, you basically want to drive their thoughts, their feelings, their actions, experiences, and beliefs. And I'm going to paste a kind of long chunk of text into the chat here, and then we'll move on to the questions. But these, oh, it's not going to let me copy it, huh? Oh, it's okay. They're in the slide notes when you get them. But I tell you what thoughts, feelings, actions, experiences, and beliefs look like for each section here, what that would look like as a company. But the core insight is that buying doesn't start with information. So when you're giving people information about your product, it really isn't doing anything. It has to start with emotion. The information comes secondary. And your business will grow when you guide customers through what they think, feel, do, experience, and ultimately come to believe, because that's where you create raving fans and where you only need those 1,000 raving fans to be a successful company. Gosh, I wish I had more time. Maybe we'll do another one of these in the future, but I wanted to open it up for some questions.
I think we have a couple minutes left if anyone has any questions for Chris. Otherwise, Chris, let's just leave our audience with one of your key nugget.
Yeah, I think a really important key takeaway is this. This is, for me, the most important thing that you can learn. Oh, let me go. You guys are gonna see my behind the scenes here. I'm gonna exit out so I can pick the right slide. 1 second. It's this. If you want to drive any decision or behavior, it's based on these 4 things. If you can get these 4 things and understand how to make people experience these, you can take over the world, you could sell your products, you could be successful, you could have great relationships. It's how to create focus through novelty. This is probably the best way. How to have authority and be perceived with authority. Think about the intro video that I had when I came out. People listen better when I play those intro videos because it gives a set of authority. Tribe means people want to feel a sense of belonging and they want to know that this makes them who they are. And then emotion. What do you make them feel? If you can get those 4 things across, that's everything that controls the limbic system. Then you then control someone's behaviors, their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors, and ultimately their beliefs. Sounds scary when I say it like that in close, but that's what I teach. Sounds kind of like super villainy.
Well, Chris, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the community and share your insights and set such a great overview. On behalf of the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center and everyone in attendance today, we sincerely thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. And my email, I'm going to put in the chat one more time before you all go. Please, I love talking about this stuff. I'm the biggest nerd about it. You're never taking my time. Well, you are, but I don't mind giving you my time to talk about this stuff. And I saw a couple PhD students in here, or people who have PhDs that work in cyber psychology. I have a lot of clients in that field. So if that's you, reach out to me because I really want to have some conversations. But I love when the PhD students and PhD holders are getting value out of this, because that means it just shows real world application rules. It always does.
Well, we would love for you to join us in our upcoming webinars. You can view the upcoming events by using the link in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you back online with us very soon.
Thank you all. AI psychology. Wow, that's a field. I'm seeing what people are saying they're working in. I can't believe that.